A person often chooses to devote a large part of his life to a cause that may seem harmful or useless. It makes no sense on the face of it. If suffering is inevitable, if your problems in life are unavoidable, then the question we must ask is not how do I stop suffering, rather, why I am suffering and for what purpose. On this answer depends your ability to accept what you are suffering or to find a solution that comforts you. Welcome to the world of success. Iman Abdullah is with you, and the idea of the channel is to elevate our thinking to a new and more beautiful level. I hope everyone is well, and let's get started. Prepare you the most delicious cup of coffee or the drink you like, and listen to me carefully. In this video, you will know about the connection of self-realization and what are the values for which I do or don't do, sacrifice or not sacrifice. Well, Mark Manson said in his book The Art of No Care, if you have to take on something big, it must be serving a great cause or purpose. And this talk was after a true story, he said, and I would like to share it here with you. On December 26, 1944, Lieutenant Hire Onado, an officer in the Imperial Japanese Army, was sent to the small island of Lubang in the Philippines. The orders he received were that he should slow down the advance of the United States of American forces as much as possible, stand firm and fight at any cost, and never give up. In February 1945, the American forces reached Lubang Island and seized it with overwhelming force. Within a few days, most of Japanese soldiers were killed or surrendered, but Onoda and 3 of his men succeeded in hiding in the bushes. In August of that year, 6 months later, the United States of America dropped 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrendered, and the most terrifying war in human history came to an end tragic. However, thousands of Japanese soldiers remained scattered on many islands in the Pacific Ocean. Most of them were hiding in the bushes, like Onoda. They didn't know that the war was over. They continued to fight as they had before. Governments agreed that something had to be done. The United States forces, in cooperation with the government of Japan, dropped thousands of leaflets throughout the Pacific region announcing that the war was over and it was time for everyone to go home. Like many others, Onoda and his men found some of these leaflets, but decided, unlike the others, that they were false and this a trap set by US forces to make the bushfighters show themselves. Onoda burned the leaflets and, hiding with his men, continued to fight. 5 years have passed, and the dropping of leaflets stopped. So the Philippine government decided to print new leaflets and distribute them in the forests. Those leaflets said, "Get out, the war's over, you lost the war." But Onoda also ignored these leaflets. A few more years passed. The people of that region in the Philippines were fed up with their constant fear of this situation. So they took up arms and started fighting those soldiers. In 1959, one of Lieutenant Onoda's comrades surrendered, and the other one was killed. 10 years later, Onoda's last men were killed. As for Onoda, who spent more than half his life in the jungles of Lubang Island, he was left alone. The governments of Japan and the Philippines have sent teams to search for the enigmatic lieutenant, who has become a legend, a hero, and a ghost as well, but they didn't find anyone. It was around this time that a young man named Norio Suzuki heard Onoda's name for the first time. Young Suzuki was an adventurous person, an explorer, and the legend of Lieutenant Hiro Onoda came as the answer to Suzuki's problems. He considered this a new adventure worth rushing into. Suzuki believed that he was the one who could find Onoda. Suzuki traveled to Lubang Island and started wandering alone in the jungle. His plan was simple. He yells out Onoda in a really loud voice and tells him that Emperor of Japan is worried about him. Surprisingly, he found Onoda after 4 days. These 2 men met under the most bizarre circumstances, 2 adventurers bent on the shared pursuit of glory. They imagine themselves as heroes even though they are lonely and completely destitute. Both of these men chose the suffering they wanted. For each of these 2 men, that suffering had real meaning because it was presented in order to serve a great cause, because it meant something, they could bear it, and perhaps even enjoyed it. Literally, if suffering is a necessary thing, we have to make it serve a great cause, but we have to realize what we want. If the values and ideas that I have actually serving this cause for me and for my society. So, come with me to learn about the onion of self-realization. I think when you heard about the onion, you felt strange, but let me explain to you the truth of the matter and why Mark Manson called it the onion. Self-awareness is like an onion. It has many layers. The more these layers are peeled away, one by one, the more likely it is that tears will be shed at opportune times. Let's say that the first layer of the onion of self-awareness is one's initial, simple understanding of one's feelings and emotions. Here I feel happy. This makes me sad. This gives me hope. As for the second layer, it's our ability to ask about the reason that makes us feel these particular feelings and emotions. Why questions are difficult questions. It may take months or years for us to reach an accurate, consistent answer to it. Most people need to go to a therapist to hear these questions for the first time in their lives. These are important questions because they shed light on what we consider success or failure. But there is another level in the relationship of self-realization, a deeper level. The level that causes more tears to be shed than any other level is the level of our personal values. Why do I consider this a success or a failure? How do I choose to measure myself? By what standard do I judge myself and the people around me? Reaching this level is incredibly difficult and requires constant questioning and effort. But it's the most important level because our values determine the nature of our problems, and because the nature of our problems determines our quality of life. My dear friend, honest self-examination is difficult. It requires that you ask yourself questions that you are uncomfortable with answering. And the probability that these answers are real and honest increases whenever the questions are uncomfortable for their owners. Dear friend, there are two types of values and standards that control us. There are values and standards that lead to good problems that are easy to solve. And there are values and standards that lead to difficult or unsolvable problems. You might pause for a minute and think about something that's really bothering you. Now, ask yourself why this thing is annoying. There is a real possibility that the answer will involve failure of some kind. Then, look at this failure and ask yourself why it seems like a real failure. What if that failure is not a true failure? What if it was you who viewed incorrectly? If you want to change your view of your problems, then you have to change what you consider to be of great value or what you measure your success or failure with. And believe me, my dear, if you change your way of thinking, as we said in previous video about the intellectual perspective, that everything we did or planned for was based on our perspective and how we saw things. At the end, you will know that everything came out from our intellectual perspective. My dear, we have come to the end of our dose for the day. I hope you have changed your thinking even if a little. If you want to know more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. If you like this episode of the series, feel free to put a like. Don't skip, dear friend, on sharing this information. And on Instagram, I'm posting a short and motivating doses. Don't forget to follow me there. Thanks for your valuable time. See you in a new and better dose.